What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Another scouting Steelers video. Today, we're going to be talking about Duke offensive lineman Graham Barton, a guy that's shown up in a ton of mock drafts, slated to the Steelers over the past couple of weeks. Generated a lot of buzz. They've shown him quite a bit of interest throughout the process. We're going to go through like my scouting report on Barton. We're going to go strengths, weaknesses, all that good stuff to give you guys a really in-depth kind of overview of what he is as a player and kind of how I project him towards the next level. If you guys missed yesterday's video on Max Melton, we've done several of these prospects, but at the end of the video, I also said that I was going to be streaming before the draft on draft weekend, which is about a week away now. So I will be here before the draft kicks off on Thursday night and Friday night as well on the channel. Be sure to stop by, come chop ball with me, and we'll have some fun before everything gets kicked off and gets real crazy. So just before we get started into the scouting report, please just make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment. All that stuff is just free, easy ways to help support the channel and allows me to bring more content to you guys. So let's talk about Graham Barton, man. So again, guys been mocked to the Steelers quite a bit recently and for good reason. Just over the past couple months, they met formally with him at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. I got the chance to talk to him, interview him. Seems like a great dude, definitely a guy that seems like he's wired the right way. Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith was at his pro day, did a little North Carolina tour, went to the North Carolina pro day where he's from. And then the Steelers brought him in for a top 30 visit, confirmed a couple of days ago, I believe, maybe on Monday. So they've showed him a considerable amount of interest. He's viewed as, a first-round caliber prospect. You just look at the testing numbers, man. Pretty absurd. If you look at the relative athletic score from Math Bomb, Kentley Platt, he scored a perfect 10 on his athletic testing. He's a shade over 6'5". He's 313 pounds. His 40-yard dash was exceptional. He ran a 4.95. Anytime you get below a 5-second 40 as an offensive lineman, you're absolutely cruising. But really impressive, a 1.68 10-yard split. He was absolutely elite in the agilities. He didn't do the jumps. But this dude's a top-notch athlete for the position. And I think that really carries over to a lot of the things that I'm going to say, kind of in his strengths column of his scouting report. But even beyond, before you get like into the athletic profile stuff, like I said, this dude plays with an edge. All right. This dude blocks to the whistle. He's consistently trying to get a little extra something on guys, get him to the turf. That type of attitude, that nastiness to his game, I think is definitely something that lends itself and will translate to the next level, especially early on as he adjusts to NFL caliber competition. Play strength, huge plus in his profile. This dude's a really, really strong kid, man. His hand placement's really good in the run game. I feel like he fights to stay attached really at all times. He never stops his feet, keeps running his feet. Can generate an impressive amount of torque on contact. I mean, this dude, you want to talk about guys that are capable of moving defenders out of gaps. He does this relatively frequently and consistently. So he's definitely a good asset to have in the run game. He stays balanced. He ricochets off guys on combo blocks. He can get to the second level. The only thing with that is like there are times where he'll be caught lunging a little out of control, but a very, very good run blocker already. Somebody that, a lot of teams are going to have graded pretty highly in that regard. He's a high IQ player. He understands leverage, angles, where the rusher's keys are on any given play. This dude just consistently stealing guys out. Duke's best runs, like in the games that I watched about 4 games and a handful of clips from others that I could find. They just seem to always kind of be running behind him with intention. And I think that says a lot about who he is as a player. In pass protection, he's a smooth setter, man. He mixes up his sets, his landmarks. He'll go vertical. He does some jump sets to, kind of get a quick beat on rushers. Depending on the rusher, he'll take the fight to edge rushers. So that's something that Pat Mayer preaches about, pass protection. He wants guys to be aggressive, Steelers offensive line coach. So I feel like that aspect of it will definitely be something that they take note of in their scouting reports. Basically, he can instantly in reps. Once he's attached, he has excellent grip strength, man. I mean, it shows up when he's asked to sustain blocks in the run game, but also in pass pro. Whenever this dude gets his hands on you, it's usually a win for Barton. So, like I said, the never stops his feet thing also applies in pass pro. He's a really good athlete. He's smooth, can move his feet laterally. He can change directions to mirror rushers. I saw guys try to hit him with some inside spins, some inside counters, and things like that. And like for the most part, he looked like he was athletic enough to handle that stuff out in space. He's a solid anchor ability. He sits down pretty quickly. He can reset, redirect and hips. He obviously the athleticism, the testing speaks for itself, but I feel like it's always something that I want to know when I'm watching guys or going through a full scouting report on guys after I already know they tested like a freak athlete. I want to see if it actually shows up on film, because if you can do it in shorts at the combine, I'm wanting to see it like actually on the football field. And I feel like for the most part, he's not maybe not the most athletic center or capable prospect that we've ever seen, but I do feel like he's a very, very good to great athlete at the position. And it matches the testing. So, he's played primarily at left tackle for Duke over the past 3 seasons. I was only able to find like a handful of really like one complete game and then a handful of clips of him at center from his freshman season. We'll talk a little bit about that in the but what I did see, I felt like he was a player who could sort out games up front. That's definitely something. I want a good communicator at the pivot. I want a guy who's going to be able to keep his eyes in the right spots and identify stunts and things like that. And I felt like he did a good job, sliding to cut off rushers and also communicating with his teammates pre-snap. So those were good things that I saw in limited availability. In terms of some of the negatives or things I feel like he still has to work on, he is a good athlete and he's smooth out of his stance. He can get off the ball, but even though he has like the requisite like pocket range, I feel like to play tackle, he will lose the outside shoulder pretty frequently, just due to not staying square to the rusher. He'll turn his body completely to the sideline, drop his back foot, which leads to some quick losses around the edge. So I feel like, that isn't really necessarily something that's super, super concerning to me, because we're talking about a left tackle that's probably likely to move inside at the next level. Definitely somebody who's, I feel like, one of the most likely of these tweeners to move inside. But, another area that we could talk about, the length, he doesn't meet the threshold for length, what you want in a tackle. His arms are less than 33 inches. I mean, it shows up on film. Like, you can see that this dude's just not a very long dude. It's a major issue. Like, he's not going to be able to play tackle at the next level, in my opinion. So he's not somebody that has like 5 position versatility. It just prevents his ability to make first contact. Beyond that, like, really my biggest concern in his profile really is just the timing and initial hand placement pass pro is just way more inconsistent than it is in the run game. Honestly, it's shocking considering like it shows up over and over and over. He allows guys free access into his chest far too consistently, and power rushers were really able to take advantage of that. I watched the UNC game. Apparently, UNC's got an edge rusher that's going to be in next year's class. I'm not really familiar with him. I had his name put in my notes in my phone to watch him over the summer, but he gave Barton hell. He was consistently just converting speed to power and running basically running down the midline of him because Spartan was giving up his chest. And, his hand placement can get really wide. When his hand placement is good, like he does have the ability to, like he has solid anchor ability. It's just, there are just far too times where, both of his hands get out wide past the shoulder pads. And then just guys are able to run through him. And that's going to be an issue when you're talking about a guy that's going to transition to the interior, most likely at center. Feels like that's where most teams are going to probably have him, because you're talking about you're having to snap the ball, and then his hands are quick, but he's going to have to get his hands up and in the right place with a lot less space. You think about tackle, you're operating in space, right out there on an island. When you're on the interior of the offensive line, you're more condensed and everything's a lot tighter. So you don't have as much room or a lot of as much time before those defensive players are able to get contact on you. So I feel like that's definitely something that he's going to have to work through. And probably, like I said, my biggest concern in his profile. Like I said, that USC game or UNC game, I think it was like 4 pressures, a sack, 3 penalties. The penalties are also an issue. A lot of just, sloppy kind of reps, I feel like, of him getting beat due to the things that I mentioned just now, those couple things with him trying to basically take a penalty before giving up a sack on the quarterback. So he did play through some injuries. I think that's worth noting. I didn't really know this, but he missed a couple games last season, which I knew, but he also had shoulder surgery after the season. So I know that that's been something that he's been doing over the past couple months. We did get testing numbers for him, which is awesome. But he hasn't played guard. Like, that's the other thing with, like, I feel like it's widely accepted that he's going to flip to the interior, but he actually doesn't have any guard experience at all. And he's only played 430 snaps at center, all of which came during his freshman season in Durham. So we're talking about a guy who's played left tackle for the past 3 years, having a transition inside. I think that's, definitely notable context when you think about the trajectory and, kind of the timeline of his development. Overall, I gave Graham Barton a late first round grade. I think that he's going to be a good player. He can be solid, or really, I feel like a good starting center. I feel like his athleticism will show up in space. I feel like he's going to be a very good asset to have in the run game. You want to take full advantage of this dude's athleticism, get him out in space, pin and pull him around. Like I feel like he's going to be really good in the wide zone stuff that Arthur Smith likes to run. This dude can reach his landmarks, does a good job, exploding out of his stance. And I really just like, in the run game, he just does such a good job, steering guys away, staying sticky in the run game. So I feel like that's going to instantly, translate. And like I said, the hand usage stuff and the hand placement and the timing is just a lot better in that regard, where I feel like transition is going to be pretty, I don't want to say like pretty seamless. He's going to come in and dominate, but like I do feel like he's going to be a solid run blocker really from day one. My questions really surround like what is the transition back inside going to be? How does he handle that? We've seen guys have mixed success, coming from outside, moving inside. Only he's going to really be able to answer. I asked him about it at the combine, like the differences between the two positions. He gave me a really good answer. You guys can go look at that full interview on SteelersNow.com. But there is going to be an adjustment period in that regard. And I think the hand placement thing is the only thing that I can point to that I feel like could potentially be like a fatal flaw. Not that like hand placement or timing isn't a coachable thing, because it absolutely is. If I believed it wasn't, I wouldn't give him like, that late first round grade. But it is something that's going to have to be worked on. And just keep in mind, with all these interior rushers at the NFL level, like centers are getting attacked more in pass pro now than they ever have. It used to be this old school adage that you could just throw your least best or your worst pass protector kind of at center, and you could hide him with the guards and all this stuff. Well, defensive coordinators have figured that out now. They understand, like, especially in passing situations, how to isolate those players in pass protection. I think that Barton will be fine. Like, I'm not worried about him with guys crossing his face. Like I said, he's got good footwork. He has a solid anchor ability. I just want to make sure that, his hands are going to be right to start from day one. So he's definitely a guy, if the Steelers are on the board at 20 and he's available, which it seems like he might be. I don't know where he's at on the consensus board. I think it's somewhere around that 20 to 25 range the last time I looked. I definitely think he's going to be in consideration, man. Like, you just look at, obviously, the needs on the team. They need a center. They don't have a center capable player on the roster aside from James Daniels, who is currently their starting right guard on an expiring contract. So it's very obvious they're going to have to get a center within the first 2 days of the draft. Barton, offers a significant amount of upside just with his athleticism. I think that some of the stuff in pass protection that you would worry about. I mean, this dude did put up good games. Like, he had good reps against Jared Verse out there at left tackle. Jared Verse, Florida State edge rusher, really big speed power guy. He had some good reps. I mean, he lost some, he won some, but like that was a good showing to where he can play up to competition. Like, I'm not worried about that at all. And I think that some of like his weaknesses out there on the perimeter will get kind of minimized coming inside. But typically, like I said, moving outside to inside, the hand usage thing, the wide hands, like that's gonna be a tough adjustment. Definitely something I feel like people are gonna want to keep an eye on. But you guys let me know, like, what y'all think of Graham Barton. Like, do y'all want to see him as the round one pick? I've talked a lot about there's only been, I think, 5 centers in the last 6 years that have gone first round. The kind of common denominator from all those guys are, one, they actually played center in college, but they also tested like freak athletes. And Barton tested like a freak athlete. So if you're going to take a chance on one of these quote unquote like non-premier position players, you typically want them to have that great athletic profile, because typically, that signals that you've got some upside. And I do think that, Barton has, potential, maybe like even like Pro Bowl level upside. Assuming his move into center goes really well. So interested to see, how that all plays out. He's definitely a name that I feel like is one of the most likely players that they would take in the first round. But like I said, you guys let me know what y'all think of Barton, what y'all thought of the video. Just make sure, again, on your way out, please make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Set your calendars to remind you for draft weekend. I will be here probably about 6 or 7 Eastern time before everything kicks off. Going to be chopping things up. I will answer, questions from the chat. We'll just talk ball, kind of hang out. And this weekend, or over the course of the week, I've got some other videos planned. Have a fun kind of idea for the weekend as well that I will keep you guys posted on. So as always, I appreciate your all support. Peace and love.